This is a response to a very good article by Roman Balmakov of the Epoch Times. It's how antidepressants are overprescribed. I am Mark Stewart Greenstein. I am not anti-pharma. I am pro-truth. And when it comes to brain function, brain health, there may not be a clear truth. With all kinds of studies, experimentations, in the end, nobody really knows. And yet, based on a lack of knowledge, we get prescriptions, more and more of them, to people who just say, I'm depressed. And it takes a very stern psychiatrist to say, oh, you don't need drugs. I'll get to that in a minute. Balmakov is citing a horribly incomplete study that approved fluoxetine, that's commonly known as Prozac, which upon further review, after many thousands of prescriptions to people who were depressed, it comes out that Prozac is unsafe and ineffective, at least according to one study, a study that then measured how we got here in the first place. And using a control group, that's a placebo, and a group that was given fluoxetine, the original study found effectiveness, but they left out data, including that precursors to suicidality or violence were more common to the group on Prozac than on a placebo. They also took out of mention, it was found 10 years later, that of the experimented people, I think they were largely children, on fluoxetine, 2 of them attempted suicide while in the study. Now, it wasn't a huge group, 48. 2 out of 48 is pretty significant. It implies if you have a classroom of 24 semi-depressed kids, one of them will take his own life. That's significant, and yet it was deliberately omitted. And the word deliberately I use because there are incentives to clinicians falsifying things or omitting things, okay? Drug companies who pay these study groups have a lot to gain by pulling the wool over the FDA's eyes, and when a study helps confirm the efficacy of a drug, who are we to say no? I have a better solution, okay? It is the real world, that real people around you are almost certainly better for a depressed person than drugs. Real family members, real work colleagues, real social colleagues. Get out more. Don't rely on medication. Rely on humanity around you to lift your own humanity. You know, 200 years ago, before any of these psychotropic drugs were invented, you didn't hear about depression among Westerners, okay? Go back to literature. You'll find designated people as surly, churlish, remote, but not depressed, not unfeeling either. People felt in ways that either we don't recognize now, or maybe it really has evaporated. But there's a early 1800s prescription for this too. People, in the absence of drugs, people back then had closer families. It was rare to be outcast, and there certainly was no internet to get yourself lost in, or worse than lost, diverted by bad messages about how to treat yourself from charlatans. Westerners back then also had God, and they knew that self-harm was not godly. And because most Westerners back in the 1820s feared God, they really didn't resort to depression because God doesn't have a mission to depress people. The world around us is to be taken advantage of. That's the